do have a quorum, so even though I expect there'll be some other people bopping in, I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting of the Performing Arts Committee Steering Committee, Performing Arts Center Steering Committee to order at 5 p.m. If I could ask Tim to please call the roll.
Laurie Wilshire.
Here.
Judy Carlson. Lindsay Rinaldi may not be joining us this evening. She called to let me know that she'll try. Marianne Malizi Golia is
Present.
participating remotely and present. Rich Lannon is not going to be able to join us this evening. Mary Lou Blaisdell.
Here.
Present. Trish Klee notified me that she may not be able to make it this evening, and she's going to try to participate remotely. Tracy Hall.
Here.
Mark Thayer is not here this evening, and he has indicated that he will not be able to join us this evening in any form. Mayor Jim Donchis is not here this evening, but I am here in his stead as the mayor's representative. So Tim Cummings is present, and then Brandon Moss.
Here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. With 6 members present and 1 participating by phone, we have quorum.
If I could just also.
And Tim, Tracy,
Yep.
Tracy, just for the record, since it's a public meeting, I think we have to just acknowledge that I am, in case we need to go into non-public, I am participating, but I have no other members of the public with me.
Oh, excellent. Thanks for clarifying that. And I'd also like to
Yeah.
ask those others who are in attendance, if we go around the room, to just indicate so we have that for the record as well. Gloria.
Gloria McCarthy.
Brendan Karen.
Mark McKevitz, Icon Architecture.
John Easterling, OTJ Architect.
Gaston Dietz, OTJ Architects.
Ned Collier, Icon Architecture.
Called War Hardy Construction.
Excellent. With all of that business stuff done, I will turn the agenda over to Tim
Yes,
for an update and clarifications.
on specifically the new market tax credit. So.
One quick question.
Yes.
Is, I don't see anyone online. Is anyone intending to join online?
Mariana, you?
Yeah, did I lose you?
No, I was wondering if you were getting on the GoTo meeting so that you could see what's on our screen.
I did, and all of a sudden I seem to have lost it, so I'm gonna go back in, but continue with the meeting.
Okay.
All right.
So.
I can hear you, yeah.
So, Ned, if you could just go to the appropriate slide when you can. So the reason why I wanted to do this quick update is I thought it was just prudent to circle back on the new market tax credit conversation and give you a brief update, particularly because I got some feedback that maybe I wasn't as clear at the last meeting and may have led to some confusion. And so with that being said, I apologize, but I also just thought it would help. It would help clarify the comments that I made when we last got together. So the new market tax credit conversation is ongoing right now. Neil, Ken, and I are continuously speaking to groups that have an allocation. So the FY18 allocations came out, or I would say late spring, early summer. The one group we were hoping to get an award did not. And so we were in their pipeline, in their application. And so with that being said, we've really been trying to focus on other groups that have allocation, and they're throughout the country. And there's a lot of allocation uncommitted as of right now, because they're all these groups are all working diligently to try to fund their projects. Their priority projects are what's in their pipeline, and we're not in anyone's pipeline. So what we're waiting on is projects to fall out of some of these groups' pipelines because they're not quote unquote project ready, and then and try to backfill into a group's project pipeline, into a CDE's project pipeline. We've been having very active and I would say potentially fruitful conversations with one group based out of Louisiana. And by no means have they given us a commitment, and I wouldn't want to represent that there's a strong, even strong likelihood that we would. They were very clear to us that they would be willing to look at us if if any of their current projects were to fall by the wayside. And so they keep asking us to follow up with them because they really like our project. But they, like any good CDE, are trying to stay loyal and committed to the groups that were in their application. So at best case scenario, if we were to work successfully with that particular CDE, you're really looking at a fallish, mid to late fallish type of time frame. And that's if we're successful in this round. So now fast forward to the next calendar year, which would be, not there yet. So the next calendar year would be calendar year 2019 for the awards. We've been told that applications are gonna come up this fall, and awards, allocations would be made available to CDEs sometime in the spring. Early spring is what we understand it to be. We, last time around, were only in one CDE's application, Mascoma. This time around, we're trending right now to be in at least 2, 3, or 4 is really a likelihood. So there may be more of an opportunity next time around, but again, nothing's guaranteed. So we'll see how that comes together. And if that's the case, if it is awarded in early spring, and we were to receive an award from one of these groups that have an allocation, we wouldn't be looking at actually having the funds to proceed with this project until, I would say, late spring, 60 to 90 days. So you're looking at maybe even early summer for
2020.
Of 2020 for a start. So anyway, so I just wanted to kind of give you that context. I wanted to just remind the group that, if we're looking at like a $21 million project, and that contemplates the current project you're going to hear about this evening, that's the design that we're talking about, we really have only between 70 and 75% of the project funds committed. We would need to close the gap of about 20 to 30% of the current project. So anyway, so I just wanted to make that very clear, because I know last month I was talking to you about possibly alternative revenue sources if you wanted to look in that direction, and I don't know if I was very clear in terms of where we currently were with our new market tax credit effort. So I wanted to provide that additional context for folks in case I wasn't clear. If you would, Ned, just skip to the next slide. So I'm sharing this with you because it's the latest information I have with Mascoma. This came off of a phone call from last week. I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to get hopefully something in more professional on their letterhead that kind of outlines where we're at with Mascoma, that we can maybe present at a public meeting of the Board of Aldermen at a later date. But it basically says, as close as you can get, an interest, a commitment, if you will. By no means is this a commitment, I should say, but a strong interest from Mascoma. So thank you for your time to discuss your prospect of new market tax credit projects in Nashua. To confirm, as we discussed, the Nashua Center for the Performing Arts Project has been and remains a high priority project for Mascoma community development. As we've discussed in the past, we consider the Performing Arts Center project a positive and impactful community development project for the city of Nashua. The project's positive impacts are bolstered and enhanced by the high level of engagement by the community and the city's municipal authorities. To be clear, and we've stated in the past, Mascoma Community Development likes this project a lot. We can make no promises regarding the granting of a new market tax credit allocation. We've discussed the approval process, which includes a number of steps before we can review with our advisory committee and the community investment committee. Even more important is that community development, Mascoma Community Development needs to receive a new market tax credit allocation authority award from the CDFI fund. We've also discussed that you will need another CDE to grant a minority portion of the needed new market tax credit allocation with an amount to be determined. Nevertheless, Mascoma Community Development continues to hope to receive a new market tax credit allocation award sometime in the future. When and if Mascoma Community Development receives a new market tax credit allocation award, we will immediately contact you regarding the next steps needed to be accomplished so that you can initiate the underwriting and due diligence process in hopes of seeking approval for a new market tax credit application for your Performing Arts Center project. So that is the latest intel I have from Mascoma, which makes me feel positive. Now I can say Mascoma has not received an award in the last 2 years. I'm not sure if they'll receive an award in the spring. In the spring, we could still be in the same boat that we currently are in right now. But I do remain hopeful that if Mascoma does receive an award, it does sound like they would want to, make this project a reality or participate in some way. I think this is the clearest level of commitment they can give, given the position that they're in.
So, first of all, I'm amazed that you could read that from that far
I
away.
started to get lost
Those
right
of us
there.
who are visually challenged at our ages are bowing to your young eyes. I'm just gonna start with that. I do have a couple of questions, but do want to open up to other members of the steering committee for your questions prior to doing mine, and then I will offer the general public if you have a question to ask after the committee's had a chance to do theirs. Anything from you?
I mean, I've got 1,000 questions.
And actually, to be fair, I don't want to hijack Ned's group's
No.
presentation this evening,
No, we're good.
but I did think that this was so important because I've heard so much feedback from folks over the last couple of weeks. I did want to try to just set the record straight.
Anything
mind.
now? Yep, go right ahead.
Well, I think that we all need to start thinking about the alternative funding solutions that Tim was talking about. And
Is
It's
Marianne
my favorite
I think
song.
it's Marianne.
radio?
Got disconnected.
I think she got disconnected, yeah.
what do I do?
I would leave. I think you leave it, right?
We'll hear it.
Because she'll put
She'll
that
put
in.
back in.
See if she's
Uh,
still here.
As far as Ned and your team is concerned, if we have to wait until next spring to get this project rolling, you just keep you on retainer? Is that
No, we'll go through the schedule next.
all right?
The-
So maybe I'll wait until after
Yep.
Ned's presentation.
I'll just take the opportunity to comment that if we follow along with the Ned's schedule as he's going to outline, this actually works better.
Okay.
It actually kind of works out because there's a little delay on their end, there's delay on our end. We need to be at a certain point to be project ready, which is really important. So,
There she is.
so that's.
Hi, sorry, I don't know, I think I hit something, obviously. I have a question, but I'll wait for others.
Okay, I'm gonna go around the table, Marianne, so I've got you in the queue to ask a question
Okay.
when it hits that. So I'm gonna
Thanks.
suggest first that Tim, perhaps at our next meeting or a subsequent meeting, that we have an agenda item specifically to talk about the alternative funding side of it, because I think we're all gonna need some education on that, so if that can be made an agenda item for the future.
Yep.
Because I don't even know what those might be, and probably not the time tonight when we don't have the prep. Anything else specifically on
I'd
what
like
you
to
presented?
See
And wait
Ned's
till,
presentation
yep.
before I.
have
Lori,
nothing
anything
right
for
now.
you?
No.
Judy, any questions?
No, talk to Ned's presentation.
Mary Lou?
Nope.
So the only two questions that I had specifically on this process that we're in right now, so the CDE group that fell through, is that them? So really not fallen through, just didn't happen at the time that i.e., we didn't get told no, where we thought we were gonna get told yes.
So it's a multi-step process. We did not get told no by the group that is really interested in us. In fact, what I'm trying to show you or demonstrate is the group that has the ability to give us a new market tax credit really likes us.
Yes.
They just don't have the ability to give us a new market tax credit. But if they do get it, I do believe that
We'll
we
get it.
would get it.
So what I
They're
just,
leading me to believe that.
so what I just wanted to make sure was that if there was somebody that we thought was gonna say yes to us, and instead of them saying, yes, we're still really interested, we got told no, I would have wanted to know why,
Yeah.
what in the project wasn't a good fit. And the Louisiana possibility is that someone that currently has funding, or they're in the same boat as Mascoma? They currently have funding, we're just not yet up to their, we're gonna give you, at this point, publicly.
To be as cavalier as I can on that, we need one of their groups that they've committed to fall, their
Okay.
project to fall apart.
So
for
they,
us to backfill into the place.
so they like us, but they have no more available funding right now.
And it's similar to like what Mascoma has done to us. They have these 3, 4, 5 projects that they've said, we like you guys. If you're really ready, we'll fund you because we have an ability. Now, lots of these projects, as I understand it, say they're ready, and they're really not.
Okay,
And so so these groups know that there'll be some slack. They fall out of the wayside, and then they need to backfill
got
projects, because one of the things they're most judged on by the U.S. Treasury, by the CDFI fund, is actually deploying their capital. So to have the best application possible, they need to show that their money's committed. So that's why they're always looking for project ready.
it. Excellent. Is there anyone from the 3 members of the general
Mary
public
Ann.
that we have?
Mary-
Oh, Mary Ann, I'm sorry, you had a question.
Oh, I have a question. Yeah, and you know what, I'm afraid to touch a button to signal I have a question because I think that's how I lost you, so I apologize. Tim, in the second paragraph, the last sentence says, we also discussed with you the need for another CDE to grant a minority portion. So does the money that we got from the state qualify as that minority portion, or is there something else? And I apologize if I missed an answer to that when I lost you.
No, this hasn't really been discussed because it's really technical in the weeds. But essentially what it is because these groups only have a finite amount of allocation, what they like to do is spread it around as much as possible, because it makes, again, their next application look better, because they can say we did all this with the finite amount of funds you gave us. So what they often do is they partner with other CDEs that have allocation, and so another CDE that they work very cooperatively with will come in and say, instead of, so we're looking for, what we're saying is a $15 million qualified equity investment. Mascoma will commit to like 12 or 13. Then another one else will come in for 2 or 3, and now that minority CDE basically allows Mascoma to take the lead, and they just follow suit, but they get to claim the extra points on their application.
Got it.
So that's really how that works.
So it will be if Mascoma were to grant us New Market tax money dollars, it would be their responsibility to find another CDE, or is it something we would have to get out there and shop around for?
So it's both. To answer your question, 90% of the time, Mascoma has developed working relationships with other CDEs that they just work collaboratively with. However, because we're the city of Nashua, and because this will be a really attractive project, because the risk of default is so minimal, that there will be other CDEs that we may want to talk to for various reasons. For instance, if one of the CDEs plays a minority role, they may also want to be the investor, right? That's very common, is that because all these large banks are investors to reduce their tax liabilities, but then they have wholly owned subsidiaries that are CDEs, and they oftentimes participate in the deals on both the investor side and in the tax credit side. So.
Does that answer your question?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much.
Again, I want to make sure we stay focused on what we're really here for tonight, which is the review of the design, but I do want to see if we did have 2 members of the public join us, Rick Dowd and Lisa Bissonette, so I just want to acknowledge that. I didn't know if the 3 of you had a quick question specifically on this Mascoma part of it. If hearing none, we will move along then to review of designs, and I will turn the agenda over to Ned Collier and colleagues.
This is still going to be equally visually challenging.
Should have brought my binoculars.
So The last time we gave you an overall schedule was in January, believe it or not, of this year. So we've now updated as of today the schedule. What's been grayed out at the top is work that we've completed to date. So as everybody's aware, we went through the schematic design phase. Harvey and Carl's team did some exploratory demolition work for us, and we had a detailed cost estimate done at that time, which resulted in somewhat of a hiatus for about a month in terms of progress when we developed the two versions that we presented last time, and the vote was to proceed with version 2, which is what we're showing you today as the advancement of that. In terms of the design phase, of this, speaking to Brandon's question, we're moving forward with the goal of completing the documents by the end of the year. There are a number of advantages to that, particularly in terms of developing a project that is shovel-ready for the new market tax credit folks, because that, as Tim has said before, hinges around when we have a GMP for the project. And previously, we had planned on the GMP being at 50% design development. The pressure is off on that now, which I think will raise Harvey's confidence, because that's a very early GMP. But we will be submitting 50% design development set to them, more for a gut check. We're not looking for a full estimate at that point. That will come at the beginning of, will start, I should say, at the beginning of September, and probably run for 3 to 4 weeks at that point in time. We had also identified that there would be meetings in June that should actually be grayed out with Eversource. That has happened. The utility conversations are ongoing, and that information is getting fed into the development of the design. Carl, I don't know whether you want to give any kind of update on the utility conversations, or?
Well, Tim and I met once again with Eversource. And they have decided that we do not need, good news is we do not need fiberglass poles, which are godly expensive. And they were in the process of going to walk it once again after we departed, and I am still waiting to hear back from them what the latest will be. But the estimations that I got earlier, the cost to move the utility lines to the north side of West Pearl is going to be much cheaper. How much cheaper, I haven't heard yet, so that's all good. I did meet with the gas company. They came down, they looked. They will allow the meter to stay in the building, which is a good thing, because we don't have to have it on the sidewalk. So they're all set there. I said, when you get your final loads confirmed, let us know, then we can change things out. So those two are good. Penachuk, I think we're good with. We've met with them in terms of what has to happen. If we can reutilize the fire service at the current location, it's just a matter of confirming. Still hard to believe we need a 4-inch domestic line for this size building, but I'm gonna let the engineers work out their magic. Once we know what that is, then we can get them to bring in a new domestic line and get us a price for what that would be for the meter. So I think, other than that, the only other ones that's out there is Comcast. They thought that if we would move the lines north on West Pearl rather than the south side, there was enough slack in the lines that they had, the fiber lines, just to move them across the street without too much trouble. And I am still waiting for them for a price. Behind the building, there is a connection box that feeds pretty much from our building all the way down Main Street. So they were going to look into what it was going to take to transfer that over. So things are moving, not finalized yet. It was. I just took it as good news that the potential move of relocating the utilities across the street was doable without the use of fiberglass poles. So that was good news.
Thanks, Carl.
So just to remind everybody, I didn't bring the budget structure that we've worked out everything that Carl is talking about is actually separate from the building construction costs that we're focused on. So it's great news for the city, but probably not there isn't an impact on our bottom line, so to speak.
Right.
We will, as I said, we're anticipating finishing the second design phase at the end of August. Once we get through the cost estimates with Harvey and we reconcile them and we're good to go again, we will not go into the construction document phase until we have an on-budget project. So there may be another round similar to what we went through in May, hopefully not to that dramatic degree. But as I've learned, architects don't warrant project costs. They're very volatile, and that's part of our commitment to you, is to help work through those volatile issues. We had specified, based on really political circumstances, an early demolition and abatement release package. That's probably not necessary at this point, although Carl and I were talking at the beginning, there may be benefits to the project to doing a more extensive demolition package in the apartment building in particular than we had previously anticipated, and that's largely risk mitigation.
Does it help advance the design?
It absolutely helps advance the design, but even more importantly, it
Will it expose whatever we may find? And I guess the concern of the discussion was, if we expose it now, then we know what we're dealing with. If we find it later, now it's a contingency item that has to be dealt with. So, excuse me, the more that we can find now, I'm not sure that the funds are available to do this, but if it was at all possible, getting most of the abatement done except roof and windows and what have you, everything interior, and opening up that interior would give everybody, Ned and his team, good observation of what we're really dealing with. Keep in mind, the prior version, most of those floors were all being removed. We were keeping just the 3 outside walls. In this new version, we are maintaining all of that. So it'd be nice to know exactly what we're dealing with so we can see from below and above, and there's no surprises later on.
Right, there's a hidden risk to unforeseen conditions, concealed conditions, that will get reflected in a bigger contingency if they remain unknown. So that's just what that,
Food for thought.
yeah, food for thought. The construction document phase simply got pushed out a little bit further than the January schedule. We have not altered the length of that, and as I said to Tim and Carl in an email earlier, we would resist altering that because that's really the critical phase for documenting the construction of the project. That would then bring us basically to the end of the year for the construction document set, which would literally be ready to go on the street, so to speak.
Ned, if I could interject, I mean, December 10th, I'll be honest with you, if you could have the month of December, and if we put this out right after the holidays, when everybody is looking to gear up for the following year, it's the most opportune time to bid a project. It can't be any better than what it is. So if bidding it before the holidays can be a little frustrating in between the holidays, if
Yeah,
that
this
said,
isn't the bid, this is our getting the documents ready.
no, I get that, but you're saying, but you're done by December 10th.
Yeah.
So I'm saying if it went to the January 1st, we put it out after that, man, I'll tell you, it's a great time to be bidding, right after the holidays when everybody's back focused and, vacations are over and what have you, so it'd be a nice time to look at putting this out on the street.
Tim?
Just want to be clear though, that would assume that we have a project we can finance.
Correct.
Just want to bring that back.
Yeah.
Minor point.
Minor point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, coming back to your point, Brandon, there are lots of good reasons for getting the project ready to bid. It has happened in the past where a project goes in the drawer, to use some old-fashioned descriptions. It simply sits until the financing is available. The estimate gets revisited to anticipate the kind of delay because costs only go up. And then it's when the funding is available, hopefully not too long after that, we would be ready to go at that point.
One thing that may be helpful to all of us as we start looking more detailed into the schedule and it starts to adjust a tiny bit, would be whether it's on your end or there's a separate document that's a kind of a combination document. It'd be great to get one that notes those contingencies. So a contingency for moving beyond the
Right.
preparation of the plans to actually going out to bid for those plans is contingent on funding or whatever those contingencies may be. That if we all of a sudden, and I don't anticipate this, but if we tonight or at our next meeting said, oh my God, we made a major mistake in the design elements that we've already agreed on and we need to revisit that, that would in turn push things out. So it'd be nice to have a timeline that included at least an annotation of what the contingencies are to make those dates. Big ones, not somebody's
Right.
out sick or
Tracy?
whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, Mary Ann.
Tracy?
Yeah, go right
Yes,
ahead.
one thing as I'm looking at this, understanding the purpose of the committee, is to put together a package and then make a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen, and the Board of Aldermen actually needs to approve whatever comes out of this committee. So where does that fit in here? I mean, can you send out this package prior to Board of Aldermen approval of this, or do we have to reflect Board of Aldermen approval in this? Because, the legislation says the steering committee is putting this together and making a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen that they need to approve.
Tim,
So
could you-
where does that come in this? Because I think we need to make sure that's reflected, so folks on the Board of Aldermen understand their role in this.
Tim?
It's a good question. And I guess it comes with a very nuanced answer. I mean, so I guess the time the Board of Aldermen would have an opportunity to really weigh in on this would be at contracts that would be coming forward. That would be really the only real opportunity, I think, because if the question is to approve like the overall design of the project, I mean that hadn't been anticipated. I mean I guess I just didn't anticipate that because the bond authorization has been approved. So it's technically up to the administration charge to execute based on the bond authorization. So that's the typical process. So other than a contract approval, I don't know where you'd actually see that. It's not like a resolution.
But Tim, I saw it in the legislation, and I don't dare touch anything on my screen for fear of losing you. I thought in the legislation it said that the steering committee would come together, and make a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen. And I guess that's something that needs to be clarified.
It's to the
But I know in all my conversations with Alderman McCarthy also, that has been my understanding, that the steering committee would be putting all of this together, but they have to make a recommendation that the Board of Aldermen has to approve before we can let the bond, and we approve the bond. So I guess, again, not to belabor this, but I think we need to clarify that.
So, Mary Ann, none of us has the legislation in front of us. I'm going to again ask Tim if he can get us a specific outline of what approvals by anyone, us, the board, different board committees, what those approval points are and what we would need for those approvals to go forward. And if that could,
At the next meeting.
if you need it to get out beforehand, that'd be great, but maybe something that we all review collectively at whatever our next meeting is, and I don't know when that is, so if it's not gonna be soon, let's just get it out in everyone's hands so everyone has that common understanding. But Mary Ann, so we'll table that conversation for right now since none of us
Yes.
really has it in front of us, but thank you for raising that.
I would like to comment, and we're not part of that process, but in terms of its impact on our process, experience would say that a lot of the approvals are happening informally, so that when you get to a formal approval, we're
You know what's gonna
confident
happen. Yes.
in what's happening, because the further, Tim's heard me say this over and over again, the further we get in our process, the more difficult and costly it actually gets to make changes
Right.
to what we're doing.
Understood. So that would be great, Tim, if you could make that happen. I appreciate that. Ned, we're back to you.
Let's do the fun stuff now. Not that that isn't fun. And I think, John, if you wanna talk through the plan issues you and Gaston,
Yep.
they're doing an instant handoff.
Okay, so I think as you're all aware of kind of the some big changes in the new design is that one, in the basement, we're really going to not do much at all. We still have the existing mechanical room down here that's going to be used, but as far as program in the basement goes, we're not locating any program elements down there. What you see here is, so the apartment building on the left and the shoe store on the right again. This is the crossover for the stage that used to be up behind the stage in the back of house. Now, because we're trying to keep the length from back of stage to the back of house, as you know, within the confines of the existing shoe store, we have taken that crossover and underneath the stage, so there's a stair that comes down from stage right here, and the whoever needs to get across and over to the other side of the stage can come through. Will be designated corridor, might be partitions, it might just be a chain link fence or something to divide this space, which is really not purposed as storage space, but just empty space here and here, so they can come over and back up this stair. And this is a new elevator location here and here. That's what those represent.
So
Yes.
only the freight elevator goes.
The freight elevator.
It doesn't show any of the other staircases going down into the
That's correct.
basement anymore, does that mean they're not going to?
They do not.
That's
So
correct.
for future use of that area, there's no way to get to it, other than by this back entrance?
That's right. We're not taking the fire
They have to
stairs
be
down.
constructed at a future date.
Yeah.
So even the staircase, is that possible, the way it's designed?
Yes.
Okay.
That said, we're trying to meet your program requirements without doing that.
Right.
Right.
We're not pushing something into the future. The other thing is, the structure's not showing here yet. There's a whole
Yeah,
lot
there'll
of
be a lot
structure
of
coming
columns
down
down
here.
here.
And in an ideal world, you would never need to expend more in the basement.
But we couldn't.
And
It would be a
I
more
just wanted to
costly
ask, sorry.
investment.
One second, just one sec, Mary Ann. One sec, go ahead, I'm sorry,
It would be
Annette.
a more costly
no,
investment.
it's
in the
Shoshana.
future.
Okay, just hold on one sec. Be more costly to add it in at
In the
that
future.
point. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let also the record reflect that Shoshana has joined us via phone. Did you have a question?
Sure.
Sorry, Shoshana, did you have a question or
Is she
just?
alone?
Yes, it is. So I apologize.
Wait, hold
I
on,
haven't been-
can you just hold on, sorry, one sec? We just need to clarify for the record, are you alone at the phone or are there others with you?
I'm alone.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead and ask your question then, thank you.
I apologize if this is something that you guys have covered, but what are we losing with getting rid of what was programming in the basement? I don't have that in front of me. And is there, I think to Drew's point, the possibility to put it in later if
So what was previously programmed in the basement has been accommodated elsewhere in the building. The one programmatic component that has not been accommodated is a standalone gallery. We have identified actually a fair amount of space that can be used as gallery in the upper levels, but not in the basement.
Right, so to find efficiencies in the square footage that we need to reduce our costs from building so much square footage out to a usable level, we are doubling the use of certain spaces, like the gallery and lobby and things like that are the same
Joint
space or joint space.
usage, yes. Shoshana, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
The other part of it, and which we talked about when we were looking at the two options, is we're using the apartment building existing space much more efficiently. So instead of having a large quantity of toilet rooms in the basement under where the shoe store currently is, those are accommodated in the apartment building.
Right, yeah, you'll see that as we go up. So this is the orchestra level, the entry level. So we'll start here up at the corner with the vestibule, which is still at the corner of West Pearl and Main. Coming into the lobby space, which has a 2-story slot here right at the face of the Main Street elevation. The lobby extends around and down West Pearl, and there is a West Pearl lobby down here and another corner vestibule there off of the alley. So there are now entry points off of the alley and off of the corner at West Pearl and Main. To kind of stay at the Main Street lobby area, the box office and box office manager is down here in the bottom right-hand corner, and this is where one of the main stairs comes down, or you would go up to the upper levels here on the lower right corner as well. With the box office, we still are maintaining a ticket window here at the street, and box office manager and all of that work. There will be box office windows here in the lobby at this location. As we look at this area again, we are considering large folding doors that retract upwards, so that there's could be a large opening between the Main Street lobby and the house during events that would benefit from that openness and connection. Banquets, possibly, things like that.
We should note that's something that would be carried as an alternate.
Right.
Not unlike what we've talked about the terrace and other amenities.
Yeah.
But it's something that we've reviewed with Spectacle, and for conference events, for banquet events, where they would want an easier connection between Main Street and the audience chamber, that's something they would like us to explore.
Got it.
So it's not a necessity, but it is an amenity and something that could be very useful, and as Ned said, we'll price that as an alternate. And it would be acoustically rated so that sound doesn't come from Main Street into the house during events.
John, if you wouldn't mind, so speaking of sound, just because it's the same point,
Yes.
any issues with sound where the stage edge abuts surf?
So
That
this
side.
there will be a new wall constructed here at the back of stage,
Yeah.
and that will be designed to be acoustically isolated from surf.
Perfect, thank you very
So
much.
we don't have a concern
Okay,
across there. It's a very good question because it looks like
Tracy,
Mary Ann?
Tracy, I have a question.
Yep, go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry if you say something to me, it's kind of breaking up periodically, so I'm not being rude and trying to talk over you, my apologies. The audience chamber itself, are the dimensions the same as in the original plan, or have they changed?
They're basically the same. There is a little bit more floor area than what we had when the seats are retracted, when the telescopic seats are retracted. But in essence, it's the overall same dimensions. So we have not made
Okay,
the house
and-
at that level smaller.
Okay, and what is the spacing between the seats, like the back-to-back spacing?
As we had designed previously, it's 3 feet 4 inches from back of seat to back of seat, and that is in part because we're doing the curvilinear telescopic seating, so that gives you just a couple more inches to scoot through in front of people.
Thank you. Anything else, Mary Ann, at this
Okay,
point?
I thought in the last presentation that space had been shortened, so I just wanted to confirm what it was. So it's 40 inches back to back.
Yes.
Yeah, it was shortened 2 inches, which really had to do with the movement of the aisles inboard from the edges.
Okay.
It allowed them to be slightly.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and as Ned's referring to, these aisles that go up the telescopic seating have been moved in board from the outside edges, so you don't have as many people to walk across to get to the center of those seating rows either. So that's good.
Right.
And to also note the
Okay,
size.
thank-
Okay, you're welcome. The size of the stage has
Yep.
not changed either. The stage size, length, and width is remain the same,
Thank you.
as well as the size of the proscenium opening. Those have not changed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So we have entry into the house through the sound and light locks on either side of the house. So people who come in and get their tickets in the Main Street lobby can come in this sound and light lock. People who already have their tickets and are coming in from the West Pearl and Alley vestibule can come in this sound and light lock on the other side of the house. So we kind of have flow into the house from 2 different sides now, which is very good. There is a floor elevation change between the this level in the shoe store in the house and this existing floor level in the apartment building is about 7 inches, 5 to 7 inches. So we're making up that change across the top of the house in this lobby gallery space with a very low slope of floor. So it's a lot less steep than your normal handicap ramp, which is a kind of 1 inch rise and 12-inch run. So it'll be just a very gentle rise of flooring there to get you up to this level. And then to make up that level change from the apartment building into this side of the house, there'll be this small ramp right there that will always, that's a permanent ramp in that side of the house.
Got it.
When the seating is retracted, this will still be in place so that the house is accessible from both of those sound and light locks. This is a new passenger elevator in the apartment building just off of this West Pearl lobby that'll take you up to the upper floors. And this space that's not labeled right here is catering support, which will have direct kind of delivery access from the loading area, and we're planning for some doors directly into the house so that service can be very direct and easy, and they can take their carts down the ramp there without any problem. So that's all accessible. On the main level in the apartment building, back of house, we still have production office. Have a little lobby space here, which will probably be where the ushers' lockers go. We had the ushers' room down in the basement previously. That doesn't necessarily have to be its own room, so the lockers can be accommodated in this kind of the side of this back of house lobby, as we've called it. Again, back of house at this level, here in the corner we have Star Dressing Room 1, which is right at the square footage that we had previously planned in the program. So you have a seating area, a makeup table, and then a full bath with a toilet and a shower. There is a second star dressing room. Before we had 1 star dressing room at stage level and another star dressing room up above, so we were able to get them both down at stage level, which is optimal. So that was very good. Now I say stage level, but again, to make up that difference, the stage is 3.5 feet above the house level. So to make up that difference here in the apartment building, there is a set of stairs that they would go up, or in the freight elevator, we'll have it two-sided so that they can come in and then come back out 3.5 feet up at stage level. So it's all accessible, the stage, the house, and the area in the apartment building. So, also in the apartment building at this main level, we have group men's and group women's toilet rooms. You know, before we had them down in the basement and up on the parterre level. So here we're accommodating a fair number of men's and women's fixtures at this level, and you know, so it's just off the lobby. And we originally, or in the previous scheme, we had 2 accessible toilet room or unisex toilet rooms there, but now we have group toilet rooms at that level.
Couple of small things to point out. You probably can't read it. Stair 3 there next to the freight elevator is an existing stair,
Yep.
which we are retaining. It goes all the way from the basement to the roof.
Oh, wow.
I remember that stair.
And we are indicating a lift from the audience chamber floor to the stage. New Hampshire law doesn't actually require it, so again, that would be carried as an alternate to the scheme. The stair, a stair, I should say, would be a movable temporary stair provided by the operator to the stage.
Yeah, that would be either here.
Okay.
Is there a coat, I'm sorry.
Yep, go right ahead.
Is there a coat check?
There is not a code check. I mean, I think early in our programming discussion, we had talked about them, you all bringing in racks or something.
Yeah,
if
if we
needed.
if it warranted, we'd probably do like a portable one.
Right.
No reason to waste square footage on it.
Yeah, that's a good question. In the loading area, yeah, we have, so this is all loading dock now rather than an addition back in the alley. And it's angled so the trucks can back into there and unload at, again, 3 feet 6-ish off of grade, which is really close to the 4 feet that's optimal for a loading dock, so that's really good. We'll incorporate a ramp on the side of that so that they can roll things up and down if need be, if the truck doesn't quite fit at the loading dock, and then load directly into the stage. Really, I mean, there's just it's kind of loading vestibule, but we'll have 2 overhead doors so that you can load directly onto the stage. So that'll be very fast and efficient.
So again, we should note on the apartment building, you can see the dots on the plan are the existing structure, which we are retaining virtually in its entirety. It will produce some architectural language, interesting conditions, which we hope to exploit. You'll see it particularly on the upper floors where there's some actually very beautiful cast iron columns that we're retaining. We have done, with Carl's help, some exploratory demolition on the first floor. It's a kind of odd mix of some actually rather plain Jane cast iron columns and some steel that was introduced in the 50s when the elevator was put in. That will all be retained, and a large portion of it exposed. So that's part of the reason why we're having this conversation about can we see more sooner rather than later, so that nobody's surprised. So.
Right.
Any questions on this?
Any questions on this level?
Level?
I think we've covered it. So we've gone up. Okay, so the parterre level is, I'll start on the Main Street side then. This large X you see is an opening in the floor to the lobby down below. So this is a kind of a balcony concourse walkway at the parterre level. This is the stair coming up from down below, and you'll notice as we go from floor to floor that this stair changes in configuration a little bit, and that's to accommodate fire separation requirements as well as just trying to get up and over the box office and things like that.
When-
But it's nice and wide. It's 6 feet wide. It's going to be a very gracious stair and be a very nice feature at the end of the lobby for people to
But also
experience as they go up.
when we come above the roof of the stage and the surf, we're limited to a 15-foot width. So you'll see
Right,
part
so
of the movement of that stair is getting it all lined up to fit in that 15-foot
Right,
width.
so it narrows down in width above the surf. So here you have a concourse level balcony overlooking the lobby below. We're calling this corner the parterre lounge. There could be mobile concessions there. This is that large window. This is that frame element that you recall from the elevations. So you can occupy that space and have mobile concessions there. You could come in to the parterre level, again, which has the side galleries and several rows in the back, which would be accessible to the top of the telescopic seating along these rows with removable railings. So you can enter the parterre level from the Main Street side, or again from the West Pearl lobby side. And so we have movable seating, loose seating on the side galleries of the parterre level, and we'll have fixed seating across the back of the parterre level.
So one interesting.
Quick question.
Yes.
Yes,
Is the
Marianne?
number of seating there, is that the total?
Oh,
The
sure.
435, is that total for the entire theater?
No, the 435 there is orchestra and parterre level. So the 435 is basically what you're seeing on the plan. We're still at the 750 for total.
Yeah.
We have not compromised
Thank you.
that.
Yep,
So
thank you.
one,
This is Mary Ann. For the parterre seating, is the space between the seats the same? Are we staying at that 40 inches?
Do you remember this?
For the aisles, or?
Yeah, for these
For the
right
ones up
here.
on the top.
We should check Fisher Tax's plan, because I thought it was 3.2, but
Okay,
40 inches was the basis of design originally.
right.
We'll check that.
We'll confirm that and
We
get
should
back to
confirm
you,
it.
but we are working to keep it wider than.
As gracious as possible.
As gracious as
Yeah.
possible, but it could be 38 inches or it could be 40. We can't answer that right now.
Yeah.
we should note,
Okay, and then my other question is, what's like the angle of that seating, the rate of that?
What are we, at that level, they're
For-
16 inch or 14 inch?
For angle, I don't know,
Well,
but it's a 12.5-inch riser currently.
12 and a half inches,
Yeah.
yes.
Compared to the
12.5-inch riser, okay.
And it was originally a 12-inch in the.
just a half-inch
Yeah,
Yeah.
per foot.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
the upper balcony that got,
the up
More
balcony
steeper
got
rate.
steeper.
yeah.
Right.
So a couple things to.
Okay, I'm sorry, everyone was talking, so I didn't hear all of that.
12 and a half inches. The balcony is a little steeper.
Yes.
We're not there yet.
Okay,
But we're not showing that.
thank you.
The first is we've, in working with our code consultant, and this is largely for Carl, but it has a significant impact for the experience. We're now treating this as a single building from a code perspective, which means we do not have to have a lot of fire separations between the apartment building and the new construction on the theater below. Those are expensive elements and they go away as part of this strategy. The other is something to look forward to, since we're talking about seats. John and his team and Joe Mobilia are working on getting the auditorium seats delivered here, probably early fall. So there'll be a couple of different of the telescopic seating, a couple of the probably one of the fixed seating, and some samples of the loose seating for the committee to sit down and try out.
It's important.
Excellent.
It's very
Yeah, it
important.
is
So, yeah. Yes.
Is there a firewall between the theater stage and the surf?
Here?
Yes, it's a party wall with a fire rating associated with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to show on this one?
Well, I
Yeah.
would like to keep explaining what's happening at this level in the apartment building. We have a very large parterre level lobby. Again, these are the existing columns, those gray squares there. At this level, and people would come up, again, another gracious stair from the entry lobby level at, below, and there's a fixed concessions station here. Again, we have group toilet rooms for men and women at this level, and so there's a division of front of house and back of house in the apartment building that happens right here. And in the back of house section, we have, again, the freight elevator, we have some concession support storage. We have a couple of unisex restrooms for the back of house folks.
Yep.
This space here in the corner of the apartment building, we're calling the artist lounge. That is kind of a development of the green room in the program. It's a very flexible space. It can be used as a green room. It could be used as a meet and greet, possibly. Depends on how Spectacle wants to operate it. And it would have, we're planning for it to have kind of a kitchenette counter along that side, so you could set up food and things like that for whatever wants to happen in the artist lounge. So that's kind of green room morphed into artist lounge, very flexible space.
And the concessions in the toilet room queuing are anticipated, so they're clearly separate from one another.
Excellent.
Yeah, so as people flow out at intermission, this group of people stacking up don't interfere with the group of people stacking up at concessions, right? So that's fully separated. We also have a couple of back of house offices here in this space above loading and the piano storage.
Okay.
Right?
Is there going to be like a window onto the stage from those rooms?
We wouldn't expect that.
No.
It's something we could consider, but when you try to get those acoustically rated windows, they become very expensive.
And that's not necessarily something you guys would look for from a production perspective.
It's
kind of
great
cool
if
to
it's
see,
great.
but not
gonna
a
waste money.
requirement for
Yeah.
doing the
Yeah,
job.
and remember, you have curtains hanging along here.
True,
So
anyway.
you'd have to be looking through.
Yeah.
And wouldn't have like a full open view of what's going on the
You're
stage.
looking through the rigging. The whatever's hanging.
Well, the
Yeah.
Well, the rigging is over here on
On
stage
the other
right.
side, but whatever's hanging.
Yeah,
Right.
you have your side curtains.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, with the production managers in his office, that much business isn't needed, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it's house manager and tech manager. So, okay.
So we don't need those offices at all then.
Well, they're nice to have. They don't need to be that nice.
Okay. So we can go on up then. Thank you.
Wait, one minute. Can we go back?
Yes.
A comment was made about here, and it's, I know it's hard because we do this all the time. If you could refer to rooms by windows, because sometimes I'm not sure where you're pointing to when you say here. But on the
Sorry about
street
that.
side at the party, no, we all do it. On the Main Street Parterre Concourse, there's that rectangle parallel to Main Street, right, that has the X. What is that?
That X is an opening in the floor looking so that you can look down into the lobby below. So that the floor is cut
Okay,
out.
and then the dotted line on the outside of the building, is that the window is that the window you were referring to?
No, that's the terrace above, the roof terrace.
We'll show you
Terrace
that.
above. Okay,
We'll
thank
show
you
that
very
in the next
Thank
slide.
you.
All right. Third floor.
So this is third floor, and we'll start on the Main Street elevation. Again, the stair coming up, 6 feet wide, comes up. The doors that you see here at the top of stair 1, those will be on hold open, so they'll be open all the time except in case of fire and emergency. So you just kind of walk on through them. They're not a visual impediment to you, so the space will flow into the Main Street balcony concourse. Here on Main Street, we are showing the balcony terrace, the roof terrace, as a space that is going to be listed as an alternate again, as we talked about previously for budget reasons. But we're showing it projecting out over the property line, over the sidewalk on Main Street to maximize the space. So we have right about 550 square feet, just under that, of potential roof terrace. And you would access that from the balcony lounge up here again. At the upper right corner, where it says balcony lounge, would be a large window within that frame element that's on the elevation. And that would be where you would access the potential roof terrace.
Could you
might
just,
have-
sorry Ned, could you just, I'm sorry, repeat the larger size for the roof terrace? I missed that with the alternate.
Whoa,
Sorry.
peeking ahead.
So it looks like it's 300 whatever on the, without the alternate, what is it on the alternate?
Yeah,
Was 500?
550.
it's 550, right.
Yeah.
Thank
It
you.
says 546 on the plan. I'll round it to 550.
550, perfect. I want those extra 4 feet.
Absolutely. Well, we'll scooch this down just a hair and get those extra 4 feet.
There you go.
All right.
So the idea here is that you
Yep.
could again have a mobile concessions to help support the terrace.
Yep.
At that point, we didn't really talk about gallery space, but literally on every floor, this circulation area would actually make a really great display gallery, particularly on the third floor, because we're containing an amount of windows opening onto it. It's a more generous width on that floor, but you literally, it stacks right up on through the building.
We did have one question here, Lisa?
Sorry,
No,
how
go right
many
ahead.
people can be accommodated on the rooftop terrace area, if we assume it's 550 square feet?
So it has a code limitation of 49.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
49 people.
49.
Just to give you a sense, this room is 500 square feet. So it's 50 square feet bigger than this. Narrow, but longer.
Right.
got it.
Just to give you a sense.
So imagine 49 people in here.
And the, good friends. And
Good
the non-alternate obviously drops that occupancy down to, was it dropped it to like 30 or what's the occupancy of
The
the?
non-alternate this is roof and
Oh,
not
there was
accessible.
nothing at all.
And there is no
Okay.
balcony to occupy.
Cause it looks like it says balcony terrace without it going out at 302. On what we got this
On what
morning.
you got.
Oh, it's a work in progress.
Okay, so ignore that. Perfect. So ignore that number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the alternate now is the 550.
Yes.
'Cause I want my 4 feet and 49 people, and we're gonna get 2 short people to do 50. Tim,
And you also have Lisa behind you again.
Sorry,
sorry,
it's a
Lisa.
related follow-up
go
question.
right ahead.
So those double doors onto the rooftop terrace, can they be open so people can spill in and out so you can have more than 49 people drinking champagne? Or
Yes.
do they
Oh,
have
yes.
to be closed?
Yeah, no, they don't have to do that.
Okay, good, thank you.
They can be open.
I,
Yes,
You good?
Tim.
I'm good, thank you.
Tap me on the shoulder, because I can't,
I-
move up.
Technically speaking, we have to put a sign up that says maximum occupancy of 49.
Yes,
literally slide right
Tim,
I'm intimidated.
I just feel like it's my duty to constantly do something like this, and I apologize. But I just want to remind folks that this is not part of the current program or budget. So this would be looked at if we were to pursue it as an alternate that we would be pursuing later on, and there would be an additional cost, whatever numbers we see moving forward. So just want to get that, I remind folks of that.
totally hear you. One thing that would be valuable, and I don't know how possible it is, I know there was one other thing, and I forget, there was one thing when we talked about the Eversource / utility stuff that Carl talked about, that would be a savings to the city, but not a savings to the project. And then something was mentioned that potentially was a savings to the project, and I forget what it was.
What I mentioned just now is the code classification of the building.
Yes, so there were things we didn't have to do.
We will not have to do that were done in previous.
So it'd be great if we find so I don't know how precisely you can give us the cost for the alternate that allows us to have the terrace, because I think that is, from past conversations, a fairly high priority for us. If we knew where we could or are projected to have savings in other areas, it'd be great to know those sooner rather than later, again, so we can make that determination that we're comfortable going forward.
So the probably the best time for that would be September, when we're working through the next round of cost estimates. And in reality, what we'll give to Harvey for pricing will exclude anything that we're describing as an alternate. Those will show as a second set of drawings, so that their base price doesn't include any of that.
Okay, got it. Judy,
Yeah, but the basis for the the terrace is going to be there, it's just it will be built out, correct?
That's the goal, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So, to understand Judy's, or follow up on Judy's question, make sure I understand it. It means we could add it at a later date if we were unable to come up with the funding to do it this time around.
Right.
Got it. Thank you for that clarification.
The structure would be in place.
Right.
Yep,
Right.
excellent.
And then a question, I can't believe I'm gonna say this,
Carl?
it's added cost.
Carl,
I know.
Carl.
Hey.
I know,
Carl.
I know.
We said
Should
he was
I,
honest.
I was gonna say, maybe I just won't recognize him to speak. No, Carl, go right ahead.
That exterior wall between the balcony, right, yeah, John, right there.
You wanna
Not
take
all the way
glass?
down.
Just right here.
Could that possibly be looked at as a series of sliding doors?
Yes.
Love Carl.
Cha-ching.
Good job, Carl.
Cha-ching.
No,
Wow.
I'm just saying, if you're looking for, at a specific donor, it's a way of increasing that balcony area.
That's right. And could those sliding doors be added later as part of the?
Can't believe I'm
Well,
saying
that
this.
probably would be.
That
the-
would-
Carl, you get sucked right in.
So we have to make a determination that we wanted the sliding doors or we didn't want the sliding doors as part of the initial project, not as something that we could add at a later date.
I mean, it would be pretty uneconomical, I think.
It would be very expensive.
So, so that balcony is probably steel, but does it have to be cantilevered or?
So we'll get to that in the exterior. It is a cantilever at this point to give it a generous depth.
So we'll
Yeah.
touch on that. If you have a question when we get there, Rick, just
Yep.
make sure I see you raise your hand.
Okay.
So
Yes,
I
Laura?
have, Tracy, I have a question. If we were to decide to do sliding doors on that wall between the Main Street balcony concourse and the future balcony, would we then be able to get rid of the doors on the north side of the balcony, the push-out doors?
I'm looking at Ned shaking his head, so
No,
Ned, you wanna comment on that?
In reality, these are the emergency egress doors. They actually have to swing into the building.
Okay,
And they, so they need to
okay,
be.
all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. And Gloria, you had a quick question.
I forgot what it was. Oh, so what is the wall that's there if it's not gonna be, like, if it's not sliding doors, what is that material? Is it
We'll-
a solid
We'll
wall?
show you
in
in
the
the
rendering.
elevations shortly,
Okay.
very shortly.
That
Excellent.
being able to see in is a good thing.
So just to keep going through the apartment building at this level, again, a very generous third floor lobby that you come up the corner stair in, another fixed concession stand there, and a third floor of group men's and women's restrooms. So the restrooms have been more fully distributed across the floors than what we had previously. And again, stacking for lines into that and to the concessions are completely separated. This stair here that shows up now, didn't show up previously, is this existing stair that,
Has the columns on it?
Oh.
it has a column,
Yeah.
that's, has a skylight,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
that very
Really
nice stair.
nice.
So that, we're working to retain that.
Excellent.
Again,
Is
there's
that stair 2A? Is that stair
Yes,
2A
yes.
you're referring to?
Yes, it is, I'm sorry,
Sorry, I
stair
forgot to
2A
put my
is
little
that,
mouse
there's
over
It's
stair,
okay.
stair. That's right.
Okay.
Again, the passenger elevator that's newly constructed in the apartment building comes up to that level as well. And there is that division between front of house and back of house at this level in the apartment building where we get the crew locker room with their own toilet room with shower. And we see the first communal dressing room show up in the plan at this level with a restroom and their own shower. And again, they can access the stage via the back of house freight elevator or stair 3, which is the existing stair that goes down. So there are multiple ways there. We get the dimmer room and another room.
Storage.
Storage right here.
It's a
Okay,
room
sorry.
room. Yeah.
Room. It's called room. So
Yeah.
so that's what we have at this level for a back of house.
So a couple of additional points.
Yep.
This new stair actually ends at this level, and the audience would proceed up that existing stair.
That's so important.
And part of that is that as we pointed out last time we talked, There is no access to the audience chamber at the third floor, so we felt like we could have a more free-flowing audience as you move through the building. Plus the fact this is really wonderful, and if we can find a way to keep it, we're hoping to do that. So here, on the lower side, you can see we're now down to the 15-foot wide stair dimension because we're about to pop up above the roof.
And Marianne, actually you have the mouse on it, so
that's
okay,
mouse.
yep,
Oh, no, I can see, yeah.
okay, perfect.
Yeah. Okay, I have the same question. What's the back-to-back for these seats and what's the riser here for the angle of this balcony seating?
The risers are 2, 3, I believe, and back to back, I think we were holding 3, 4.
Do you hear that, Marianne?
I'm sorry?
The rise.
No.
Right. So between rows, the rise in the balcony is 27 inches. So that's why you see
Okay.
3 steps to get up from row to row, and we're trying to hold 40 inches
Yes.
seat back to seat back. Because it is steeper, you need that little extra inch or 2 to scoot across in front of people.
Yeah. What was the previous?
Right, okay.
12 and a half.
No,
No,
12
That's
Rise,
down
oh.
on the parterre level.
I don't know offhand what the balcony level was,
But it was only 2
a lot
steps,
shallower.
so it
It was
was
2
like,
steps.
it was only like 16
I think it
inches.
was-
Oh, I see
yeah.
what you're saying, yep.
I think it was like 16 inches. We had to go quite
Slightly
steep.
steeper.
Yeah, it's just one of the concerns that's been raised to me is that it's gonna feel like you're in a stadium because it's so steep.
Yeah, it will be steep.
Yeah, and we've got some illustrations of views to the stage
Oh, perfect.
from up there. We don't have them in this presentation, but we can
We can share them with.
provide those.
Really appreciate that.
The big bonus, I think from an operator's point of view, is the control position here. Because of the steepness, you're actually not having the person standing here obstructing the view from anyone behind them. So there's a plus from a operational point of view.
Yes. So this is the upper balcony plan, which is the 4th floor level in the apartment building. So we'll start on the Main Street side again. Stair 1 comes on up, and you can see clearly that stair 1 is now 15 feet wide. Right. And what you see, this grid you see to the left side of stair 1 is proposing a skylight to get light down into the top of that gracious stair down below. So that's in the roof of the stage house roof.
Wow.
But it's not actually over the stage, it's
Stage
outside
stair.
the stage itself.
Yeah.
So then at this level, coming from stair 1, again, this pair of doors at the light lock would be held open, so you just kind of flow up and through. And once you pass through that, even though you're coming down a corridor, this is a full height wall on the left there, but then you just flow into the top of the balcony at that level. And you can cross over behind that last row of seats. And we have a sound and light lock within the apartment building to allow kind of a more generous entry into the house at that level. It's right off of the passenger elevator, which accesses from, again, street level lobby all the way up to the 4th floor there. There is a large upper balcony lobby space which fronts both West Pearl Street as well as kind of circles and encompasses that existing nice historic stair. So as people flow up from below, they land here and then can circulate to the house. In the upper left corner where the VIP lounge is, that would be, could be rented out as Spectacle, is able to do that. So that's a very flexible use space. It could be a conference room sometimes or rented out for other types of events. And that has a little kitchenette, wet bar, and its own unisex restroom right off of that. So it's very private space, but also right there on the corner, the upper floor of the apartment building, and we know how wonderful those windows are, so that's gonna be a fantastic space.
That's great.
And again, with the generous lobby, we could have mobile concessions up here right off of West Pearl, or they could be located down here wherever it makes more sense from Spectacle's perspective. And we have, again, group men's and women's rooms on the 4th floor. And so you don't have to necessarily go from one floor to the next. Carl, you had a question?
Yeah, just curious. I love the open stair. That thing is, God forsaken, beautiful. One of the nicest things in that building. But a second fire stair, a second means, is there coming off of that balcony?
Yeah, it's this existing.
Yeah. So as far as enclosed fire stairs, we get
So
stair
you'd have
3.
you'd have to
and stair
exit
1.
through the,
You'd have to.
There is an opportunity to do
Okay.
another door
Yeah,
too.
we could have a door
Oh,
here.
okay.
We could have an emergency door there.
Yeah.
okay.
This is something that's relatively new in the code that allows us to have an open stair at the top.
Right.
So this stair can stay open and still be an egress stair.
No. Yes.
Gloria? Yep.
Yes, okay, so you've got, I have not seen the staircase, so I don't know what it looks like. Sounds fabulous. Why can't you extend it further down? If it's starting up a couple of levels, you've got this great stair, why can't you go down so that it's a great stair, like all the way up?
Mainly because it falls right in the middle of the floor plan, and it disrupts the lower levels where we're kind of programmatically denser. It's a good question, though.
It's a very good
question. We went back and forth about.
I often wondered why they built the building that way to start with that grand staircase on that floor.
Yeah.
Starts
Well,
right, starts there.
Right.
Well, no, my guess is that it was originally an apartment building. The first 2 floors were renovated to become commercial, and when that happened, the stair that went all the way through the building was removed.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes
I
sense.
bet. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and again, we would know that when we do more demolition, because in all likelihood, those ornamental columns will be all the way down.
Yep.
So again, this demolition sounds like it's really gonna help further your design.
Absolutely, yeah, and we can take that into an offline conversation.
So at this level in the apartment building, back of house spaces include the administrative spaces for Spectacle. Our second communal dressing room is at this level, and our AV rec room is here above the dimmer room, and has a little bit of storage and access via the freight elevator and that existing stair 3.
This is also where we have access to the roof
Right.
of the stage house, which is where the bulk of the larger mechanical equipment
Right.
will be located. So this is a slightly more advanced version without sort of going fully to the rendering that everybody has seen. You can see the balcony and the cantilever here. This is the main stair, the monumental stair, the box office, exterior window at this corner, and the kind of parallel kind of gallery walkway all along West Pearl Street. From a material point of view, what we're continuing to look at is a kind of rough white brick on the upper portion of this. The colored materials, which would be the gray, the yellow, the blue, are all a metal composite panel that has a permanent color on it. The upper part of this, and we'll bring in material samples of all of this, is a polycarbonate panel that is translucent in quality and would be backlit, so it kind of glows like a beacon at night, and that showed up in the earlier rendering. It has good thermal characteristics, so it's actually a good exterior wall, but also simultaneously quite thin. The panels themselves are only 1.5 inch and a half or so, kind of multiple layers. It's a cellular product. So moving back on that, this is the area that you were asking about the sliding glass windows in.
Mhm.
So the red color that you're seeing here is actually the wall beyond, on the inside. And again, this is the stair climbing up in this corner, and you're starting to see into the parterre lounge here and the third floor terrace lounge in this location. From the opposite side of the street, looking to the north, this is where you really get a sense of that stair enclosure being quite narrow at that point. One of the benefits there is it largely screens any mechanical equipment that might be behind it, which in previous schemes actually sat on top of the roof and would have been more challenging to screen. This is then looking at the Garden and West Pearl Street entrance, and again, the idea that you're getting this runway on the inside with displays is very interesting.
I like the interior color. It shows that it goes in with the
color
red brick.
It's the very last.
Yeah.
Right.
So let me just jump forward a little bit. So we've had a lot of placeholders for colors. This one actually has a color palette associated with it. What this finalizes as can be put off for quite a while, but we wanted to show what we meant when we kept saying the colors are going to require further development. So in prior schemes, this interior actually had been shown as blue, and now we're shifting from the kind of more intense palette to a kind of subtler palette of siennas and browner reds, more of a powder blue rather than a kind of royal blue. The yellow is more of a mustard. And so this, I think, is giving, a better idea of what the design intent is in terms of the color palette. And when you look at it in 2D, in a straight elevation, you can really get a sense of the kind of depth of the facade and how those colors might begin to kind of interact with one another. Sorry, I'm sliding into architect speak on it. But the notion would be that the audience chamber would have this sort of deep red associated with it. The stair circulation might be sort of shades of orange, and then the beacon part of it that we're talking about might be that kind of powder blue, again, behind the translucent panels, and with a simple kind of LED tape lighting. It's very economic, so that at night it would have that kind of glow effect. The sliding doors that you're talking about right now, what we're illustrating is that polycarbonate panel is treated like a window. You would basically replace this chunk of the facade with the sliding windows in that location.
And then you're gonna light up the
square.
The window
The square.
square, the orange, the mustard
yellow,
square.
The yellow mustard.
Yes,
Square.
so you're actually beginning to see the indication,
Yeah.
in this instance, the lights we're proposing would actually be on the sill. So this is gonna be uplit, and this is, we sort of think of it metaphorically as a proscenium. So the people behind it are on stage and the lights are sort of coming up in that dramatic fashion, as opposed to, let me back up, here, they're actually downlights all underneath this, so this wall is washed with light from above, and the letters themselves might be backlit. That's a later part of the process.
So Ned, assuming that we decided to go with the balcony, where would the lighting for the balcony be?
So we probably largely depend on a spill light, although we could have some lighting from this dark strip
Yeah.
right here, or we would look at having it integral to the handrail.
Okay.
It's shallow enough that we probably could light the whole balcony from a handrail light.
Ned, I have a question about the balcony. Can you go back to the slide where you're looking more directly straight on at the balcony? That one. So this area where it's there's the rectangle where you would have the sliding doors. If we were to put sliding doors in there, would it be the same type of light source material, or would it become a transparent sliding door? What would the glass look like?
Yeah, I hadn't gotten to that because this is a thought of today's meeting. I think we'd be curious to explore what it might be if we had a translucent glass, so that when they're closed, you get that same kind of glow. But
right, and that was my thought. Like you wouldn't want, I wouldn't want to break up that translucent piece by having like this rectangle of glass in there, transparent glass. I think it would take away from the stack of glass for the stair, and then that piece to the right over the entrance.
yeah, well,
Okay.
we'll study that, and then again, it will show up as part of the terrace alternate.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions at this point on what you've seen? I just want to make sure I'm giving adequate opportunity for that feedback or questions. Judy?
I only have one left. When originally we were talking about the basement and the gallery, I also talked, because it came up with the courier, is there going to be any kind of classroom in the building for use for art classes? And I don't see where that would fit in, or
What we're calling the VIP lounge would have a pretty broad range of uses.
Or the artist lounge too.
So there are actually two. This was
so
coming
it
from
have the kind of
Spectacle, fairly
flooring.
generous.
Yeah, so it have the kind of flooring in it that could be cleaned up and it was used as a classroom.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and there are actually some very economic and durable products. I hate the name. It's luxury vinyl tile,
Yes.
LVT.
There's an oxymoron.
Yeah, yeah.
I've seen this good stuff.
But we use it in a lot of our institutional projects because it's easy to clean, it looks great, and it lasts a long time. Hospitals use it a lot.
Laura?
This budget has 2 elevators, correct?
This budget has 2 elevators. What it didn't have is the double-sided elevator, so we're going to have to deal with that because it's the way that we're getting access to the stage. Two elevators. Yeah.
Where you have the rails on that balcony, would it be more expensive to have glass to cut down on the wind?
Would you like to speak to that?
I'm gonna guess yes, but
More
yes.
expensive,
Go
but
right ahead.
Yes, by, I don't wanna say logarithmic, but it's a huge difference. It's unfortunately very costly to do glass.
Very costly, I think I just heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see,
Sorry.
if it's windy, you're not gonna be using the balcony.
Right, and it's also cleaning. Yeah,
Right,
it-
maintenance
a
is important,
kind of simple
yes.
picket like we're showing. One can be quite translucent, if we size the pickets correctly. We had previously been showing perf, but we felt like that was sort of a hangover from earlier studies on perforated metal. But glass is really prohibitively expensive.
Lisa, did you have a question?
I did not.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions at this point? No, yes?
I
We're
just
getting-
want to make sure
we're
we
getting
answer
close.
Brandon's
Yeah.
questions, because I know
Oh,
you
yeah,
said,
you had some
said you
earlier.
had very specific questions.
Well, I don't know if I give them that much credit. Well, I mean, subjectively, I like this design better than any of the other things that we've seen. I think that we've made some concessions, but I think that we've also got a lot out of it, and I appreciate what you've done, coming back to the table for it. My concern more broadly is how do we get you the money to start the demo?
Let us have that
So, yes.
conversation, yeah.
So if I could on that one, Brendan,
Yeah.
the reason why I keep saying it's related to design is because the way the bond authorization is written is, it's very clear that the bond will allow us to spend the money right now on design. We cannot start construction. And so I wanna go back and I'll check with both the treasurer and our corporation counsel. But if it is necessary to further the design, I believe it's a justified cost. And therefore we should be able to pay for it off of the bond, but I'm not the person who makes that decision. So I'll double check that to make sure that that's an accurate interpretation.
So Ned, it was pretty necessary for design, right?
You have no idea. You
Absolutely
couldn't
critical.
Constantly proceed forward without that.
Well, I also think
That's
it's
what I heard
very
you say.
important, this mitigates risk
Yes.
in a huge way.
Yeah.
So,
Mitigates risk.
so we'll have that conversation offline and hopefully be able to move that forward. We'll see.
Let's see what else. So this is then the West Pearl Street elevation, and really this is where we're putting all our money, so to speak, is to make that experience of moving up and down West Pearl Street a really great experience.
I'd like to
Change.
see art
Change approach.
pieces hanging on
Exactly.
that
The
inside
galleries run
wall.
right through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yes.
Now,
Maybe sell advertisement on
Is
this.
the glass, is
You
the
can
glass
advertise
gonna
it
be
higher up.
These are all great ideas, Tim.
Yes.
Hold- I wanna make sure everyone had a chance to hear Judy's question. Judy?
I just said, is the glass gonna be UV if there's gonna be art on there?
Yep.
And I really like that color palette because it seems to blend the old building next to the new building so much better than the
That
old
was,
building.
that was the hope. And we always strive to improve even when we're making reductions. I appreciate your noting that. I should say that this is, we've gone back and forth on this elevation and whether we wanted any openings up here, but this would be the area where we would suggest, you know, if you're gonna talk to someone about art installations, the third floor offers the unique opportunity of actually being able to
Yes.
secure it
Right.
separate from the rest of the building.
No light coming in, right.
Yeah, so I do think,
Plus it
there's-
gives us the opportunity to do some projection art, which
Cool.
we've gotten pretty good at here in Nashua.
Yeah,
and some
we
other
noted
things
that.
Did we solve the snow load on the surf roof?
Yes, yeah, there will be some reworking of about 900 square feet of the surf's roof. It's all going to be done from the outside to minimize disruption for the second floor of the surf. It's not gonna impact the restaurant proper. And we've spoken with the owner about that. Any other questions?
Looking good.
There we are, the money shot.
So Ned, it's my understanding that you really wanna make sure you're getting buy-in at this meeting because it's the plan maybe to continue moving forward to finish up the phase and not necessarily come back and see us for a little bit,
Correct,
right?
yeah, I think it, next time we see you, will be to report on the state of the estimate, the design, whether we've got issues that we need to have you work with us on again, and to test out some seats, so.
So the only thing I'd say, and I don't know whether we have the time and the information here to talk, but I think, again, to go back to the discussion of the balcony and one or two other things may have percolated for different people tonight, whether there are alternates that we want to really push to move from being alternates to being actually part of the design. And perhaps we need a meeting. I don't know whether we need your cost estimates to be able to do that or what the best way is to proceed. But I think there's been some consensus that there are things assuming that they're not completely cost prohibitive, that we would like to make the decision now to incorporate, or now being within the next,
Yeah.
before you go too much further,
Right.
to incorporate sooner rather than later.
So again, from a kind of budget management point of view, if we do that sooner, then we're looking at an increase to the budget in order to accomplish that, or we have to find something else to take out to accomplish it. That has to happen very soon.
Yes.
On the other hand, it's not unusual to carry what we call additive alternates. And following this meeting, we'll send a summary to Tim of the ones that we've identified tonight. And in fact, it would be a good idea for all of you to be thinking about that. And are there other things that could be made additive alternates? Because it gives us, we want to work with you to have a financial buffer.
So perhaps if members of the committee who saw, or the general public, I don't wanna leave anyone out, who saw things that they want to perhaps advocate for as being top priorities, if you could get that to Tim so that he's aware of where most of us feel about those would be valuable things for us to have and then in
And I'll
turn to
get
share
them
with
all.
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tracy.
So, yes, Mary Ann?
Tracy?
Yeah?
Tracy? Yes, I would ask that they not only get them to Tim, but if anyone sends something to Tim, it be copied to the full committee so everyone understands what other people are thinking.
The only, I have no innate objection to that. I want to make sure that that would not constitute a conversation of this group that we are not supposed to have other than in a public meeting. So if Tim can clarify.
Well, I guess.
So if Tim can clarify that.
It needs.
Hold on one second.
It needs to be one of two ways.
If Tim can clarify for us whether or not submitting those to the entire committee is allowable without us falling afoul of any public meeting things, then I'm absolutely in favor of it. If it's simply that we are all putting forward our suggestions and we're not then going to start a round of commenting on them, we are probably okay, but I would feel more comfortable if we had some clarification on that before we start to do it.
Yeah, I think if you put all of the
And
people's
I
comments together in a document.
Tracy, I appreciate that. So to that point, what I would ask is that Tim put those together, and it might actually be easier because if 5 people have the same suggestion, you can just list it times 5, and that document be circulated so at least people know moving forward how people are thinking, and that's not unusual, and it's been done in the past by organizers of committees. And since it's part of this meeting and this process, that document, Tim, would then become part of the public record. And I know you understand that, just like all of your other communications to the committee become part of the public record.
Perfect. Rick
I have
was
two
saying
comments.
the same thing.
I have 2 comments, and a couple of you I've shared these with privately. I like what I'm seeing, and Ned, I love the color scheme. I think it really looks great, and I think it's something that people who maybe thought the other one was too bold will be comfortable with this, but it still keeps that boldness and makes it have a presence on Main Street. So thank you for that.
Great.
I have had people comment to me about the steepness of those balconies, which is why I've been continuously asking about that, and worrying about how that is going to impact, going back to one of our principles, the customer's comfort level in participating in events. And as I said to Tim, I don't want to find out that people say, well, if I can't get floor seating or parterre seating, I don't want those balcony seats because they're too angled and too steep. So I have a concern about that. And my other concern, and I'm going to back up and just say, I'm sorry at the last meeting I couldn't voice these. Some of it again came from people's input, but some of it came from the fact that I, for one, hadn't had a chance to look at anything. So I appreciate having this in advance. But my other concern is about the lack of fly space. And we all know there are things going on with Elm Street Middle School. And we don't know what's happening with Keefe. Right now, in the here and now, we're saying the city's going to keep the Keefe Auditorium. But we don't know that's going to be the case 5-10 years down the road. And so I'm concerned about that lack of fly space and how it may impact the future for some of our community groups, as well as other programming that might go to Keefe in the present. But if something happens to Keith, where would they go, or how would that impact the quality of their show? So I just want to bring those two things forward. I would still prefer the first design. I'm going to be very honest. Well, the first orientation, I'm going to be very honest with that, basically because of the concerns about the balcony seating and the steepness that provides. On the flip side, I love the fact we're using the old buildings so well and providing all of those amenities. But I feel like I need to at least put that out there. I've shared that with some people, and I felt like I needed to share it with the rest of you and with you, Ned, and your team. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Ann. With reference to Mary Ann's comment about the seats, I think at one point we talked about clarifying some specific details on the risers and the stuff.
Sightline.
As part of that, could, if you have it, could you include maybe some comparisons to what other theaters in the area, or what kind of the norm is for riser? Like, I don't know what the Palaces is. I don't know what any of the ones around here are. Is there a typical?
References. Yeah.
So just so that
Industry standards.
by way, yeah, thank you, that was what I was striving for, industry standards. So how far off, or are we on the industry standard, are we better than the industry standard if we do this, are we worse, and by how much, or different, I should say, not worse?
Fisher Dax, Joe Mobilia's firm, can give us, all kinds of different references for you all to understand that better.
That would be terrific, thank you very much.
All
Rick?
the old theaters used to be a lot steeper.
Right.
I've been in a lot of them.
And Boston theaters are
Oh, huge.
vertigo at the time.
I'm not a member of the committee, but almost all of my concerns about switching the orientation and this design have been made okay by myself. I do have a concern about being able to fly things, and the one question I would have is, can that area above the stage be so designed that if in the future we wanted to add the space to have flyers, and how would that impact the surf's roof?
That would be roof mechanical.
So the biggest difficulty is the rigging system. The stage roof actually has concrete on it for acoustic purpose because of the mechanical equipment on top of it. So I can't speak as an expert on this, but I think it would be a costly
It would be very costly. We would need to know that now, so we could design the footings and the steel, around the stage house to accommodate that. And again, that would add cost right now, first cost. So, yeah, I don't think that's. We've done that in other theaters, in historic theaters, where we've come in and raised the stage house. What we typically do then is insert new columns and to new footings and things like that to increase and get fly space. So it is doable. It's just going to be very costly, in part because we're putting mechanical equipment up there now, and it would be very costly at the end.
Judy?
I'd just like to remind the whole committee that we had this lengthy discussion at one of our previous meetings, and we all said we would defer to the operator, and he made it quite clear, at least to me, and I thought the rest of the committee, that for this size theater, it's not really necessary to have the fly space, and that the kind of touring theater groups that would be performing here are used to dealing with places that don't have the fly space. And we all made the commitment that we were going to defer to the operator on any questions, because we're not the experts, they are, and they made it quite clear, and that's why we decided to go without the fly space.
Thank you, Judy.
And you're nodding your head in agreement.
Thank you,
Where we
Judy.
stood on it, yeah.
Lori?
I had the same recollection that Judy had, that we had discussed this, that there weren't enough X or whatever that would need the fly space, and Spectacle was
Yes.
okay with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with the design the way it is now, I was just concerned that if somebody wanted to change later, which is the least expensive way to go to do that.
Brendan?
I'd just also like to point out.
And if I may, Tracy?
One sec, Marianne, I just
Tracy?
recognized,
Yep,
one sec, I had just recognized Brendan, so hold on one sec.
Sorry.
not a problem, thanks. No, go ahead.
I'd also like to point out that if the key ceases to be a place where community theater can happen, the symphony's also gonna have to go somewhere too. So I mean, we have several problems
Right.
when that happens, not necessarily just where, so.
And it's not really fly space here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, at that point, this will
That's-
never
yeah,
accommodate.
exactly.
This won't do what we
So
need.
that's,
Yeah.
Yep.
that's a problem
Marianne?
we'll have to address.
Thank you very much. Marianne, all set?
Yes, and Judy, Judy, and to the rest of the committee, I agree with you. We said we would go with Peter's recommendations, but a comment was made at our last meeting about, well, actors, singers, they don't need it because they've got the Keith. And afterwards, people commented to me about, what if we don't have the Keith? And I thought, you know what, that's a realistic thought. What if we don't have the Keith? So I felt obligated to voice that. It's out there. We did agree to go forward with Peter's recommendations, and I have 110+% in you, Peter. So I am fine with that. But again, I feel like it needs to just be mentioned in the table that we acknowledge that there are some limitations, and that's it. I'm fine with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Did you?
Yes,
Judy?
and I also think that actor singers are like so many other theater companies. If they know that they're gonna be performing in this space rather than the Keith, they don't often use fly space for changing their sets. They can just redesign and use the, whatever you call it, the wing space, and do it through the
Wing space.
Yes, I'm sure they would do that.
So I just,
Ned,
quickly
yep.
speaking for the design team, it's part of the reason why we made this a sort of big event for all of you. We need to know that you are comfortable advocating for the project that is proceeding forward, because, as I mentioned earlier, the further we go, the harder it is to back up. And it will cost the city to do that.
So
It's super important.
So
Yeah.
before I recognize Gloria, I just want quickly to just maybe get a yes, we're okay to proceed from each of us individually at this point. I'll start by saying I was not as enthusiastic at our last meeting. I had some concerns about how the shifting from straight on to sideways was gonna work. I feel significantly more comfortable with the detailed design that you guys have presented this evening. So with thoughts in my head that I'll share with Tim about some of the additions I'd like to see, I'm comfortable with saying that I would support the design direction that's going on right now. I know Mary Lou unfortunately had to leave, but Judy?
I think from when you first presented this switching around idea, I think this is so much better. You've done such an incredible job of listening and incorporating everything we need. I think it's kind of too bad that there's not the potential in the future to use some of that basement space. But, you know, in future years, if it could be developed. But you did a fantastic job of listening to us. I think it looks great.
And you're not precluded from using the basement, it's just going to be a bigger investment to do it.
Lori?
I support this. I was concerned initially too about the shift, but I like it. I think they've done everything we've asked of them, and I would support this as is.
Brandon?
You quietly provided me with everything that I asked for originally.
He obviously has an inside line there.
I think I'm probably the happiest person in this room right now when it comes to that. I am, and perhaps I should be as patient as you are, but the rooftop terrace has become more of a pain than I expected it to be. But I also think that as a result of us being so excited about it, it is kind of a necessary component now, because that's how we're selling it to people who are gonna invest in it, so.
Tim, I'll do Mariana, but Tim, as the official member tonight, anything, do you wanna speak on Jim's behalf, or you wanna just pass on this
I would
one?
pass on it,
Okay.
yeah.
Marianne, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think you all know, I think this looks great. I'm happy to see it flushed out. My concern is just those seats, which I said before. And Brandon, I would agree with you and others who said that terrace, although it's going to cost us something, I think it's really critical that we try to figure out how to do that. So, and I would agree with Judy, at some point we need to figure out how to have access to that basement space if we want to do some informal programming down there, like classes or whatever. But I'm real happy with the way the old building is being utilized. I think that's great.
Thank you. Gloria, I know you had a comment you wanted to make, and then if you.
Well, I was more of a question about sightlines, because you've shortened the audience chamber, so everything's gonna be higher and at a steeper angle. Are you gonna be losing more from higher up? Are you losing
No,
visuals?
we wouldn't have come forward with this recommendation if Fisher Dax weren't behind it, and they've done their sightline studies and stand behind it.
And because I was wondering if from one of the slides, you had movable seating on the sides, and it just looking at it, it looked like you would be able to see a lot from those seats past the
I
side
think it's
of
the
stage.
third floor elevation.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
from these seats on
Yeah.
the side galleries
Right.
at particular level, now these still have very good sight lines.
Okay.
We're not showing seats here along the side walls, because those don't have good sight lines, but that can be used when you have general admission standing events. So people standing here, which would really typically be amplified music and things, so sight lines aren't as critical, but the seats shown there on the
Right.
side galleries at particular level have good sight lines.
Okay, because I was wondering if the proscenium could be wider, just to get a better.
No, well, when
Better
you start to
visual?
widen the proscenium, then you start to lessen wing
The
space
wings.
and things like that, so there's a kind of back and forth that we have to play with, so.
We're happy to share their analysis.
Yeah.
We can include that along with this.
So they look at it in section as well as in plan.
Right.
Is that, you good? Carl, did you have a question?
I just caution you on the basement. I think you gotta see what that space is really gonna turn into after all these columns are put in place. I know everybody's anxious to try to regain that space. The head height in there is very limited, and you start adding columns to pick up the floor loads that we're generating here. I'm not sure what you're gonna be left with at the end, so just keep it in the back of your mind. That Ned mentioned it earlier, I just wanna make a reminder that it's not gonna be wide open like you think it's gonna be.
Right, well, and we, even early on, when we were occupying it, we weren't describing it as particularly high quality space.
Right.
So I think that you've noted that in keeping the apartment building, we've captured much higher quality space
Yes,
for those functions.
Yeah.
definitely.
Any, we're coming up on 7 o'clock, any last
I just
comments?
wanna say, I do wanna comment, I commend you guys stacking the bathrooms on like that, that's all gonna help price-wise. No, great job, great job.
Thank you. Yeah.
Other questions, comments, anything you wanted to add from
Just say for the
Spectacle's
record, on
perspective?
behalf of Spectacle, we are very pleased with the way that this has played out. Granted, we've had lots of conversations with ATJ and everybody, but we are very happy with the way this came out and fully stand behind it and believe in it as a good product.
Excellent. Gloria, one last comment?
And it's not a problem to go down a flight of stairs and run across and go up another flight of stairs.
In terms of the crossover.
No. It just seems like.
And to be honest, what we're starting to find is that the idea of a crossover actually is becoming more of an antiquated thing in performing arts, and many spaces don't have them. So to even have one is nice, but it's not used as often as you think.
Judy, last comment?
I'd just like to ask that we could get as many of the drawings in the exterior as soon as possible, because I'd like to put it up on the Facebook page.
Sure.
And I don't know if you have any more of those cool renderings.
We haven't gotten to the rendering
Okay.
yet.
Or whatever you get to that, that's fine.
Actually, that is a good question.
Right.
I do potentially have a need for these for a meeting with a potential investor tomorrow evening. Is it possible to have those, what you showed tonight,
Yes.
sent to us so that I can, and I'll do it as, it's still in the preliminary design stage, but that would be a nice thing for a fairly significant potential contributor
Yeah, Tim,
to be able to show that.
as always, will get a PDF of the entire presentation. The individual images we can send.
Yeah, I need
Also.
individual images for the Facebook page.
I don't need those, so if you can get that to me tomorrow, that would be really ideal.
Use a cheeseburger.
So we are at,
And we'd go out, you know, to.
we are
and-
right
and-
on the dot of 7 o'clock. Any last, we do need to set a date for our next meeting.
That's all I was gonna say.
So I will recognize Tim to help us do that.
I would like to, if the group feels it's important, meet next Wednesday to just kind of continue talking about the new market tax credit and the budget conversation. Just because I want to make sure we're all comfortable and clear on the path that we're going. Again, just you know, I want to make sure I'm leading this project in the direction that this group wants. And if there's something else that the group would like to pursue, I'm happy to do that. I just want to make sure I know. So maybe next Wednesday if possible.
Does that work for committee members? So that would be great, and whatever we have to do to get that posted
Yeah, I'll
and
take
up.
care of it.
But we'll, so 5 o'clock
5 o'clock here.
here,
Next
over in
Wednesday.
208 next
Yep.
Wednesday.
Yep. The design team won't be here. It'll just be a meeting with myself to kind of continue the conversation we had at the start of the meeting.
I don't think we would really need to see you unless something comes up in the interim until late September.
So that's a while.
All right.
All right.
With that, do we need a, I think we need,
You
do
do.
we need a formal motion to
I would
adjourn?
move we adjourn.
Judy, is there a second?
Sure.
moved.
Brandon, is, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Hi.
Tell her to
Thank
go
you
back to
guys so much
vacation.
for making the time again to come in, this really was a good presentation
Thank you
for us.
all. Thank you very much.
Feel better.
Very exciting.
Mary